What if someone told you that 2,500 years ago, a group of Indian philosophers had already figured out that reality isn't real? Not metaphorically, not poetically, but in a way that maps almost precisely onto what the most sophisticated physicists and computer scientists are saying today. They called it Maya. And if you've ever gone down the simulation theory rabbit hole, Elon Musk, Nick Bostrom, double-slit experiments, and thought, this feels strangely familiar, there's a reason for that. You've already been circling an idea that ancient India solved millennia ago. They just didn't call it a simulation. They called it the cosmic veil, which honestly sounds more ominous and significantly more stylish. Today we're going to unpack Maya in full, not the watered-down life is an illusion version you see on motivational Instagram pages. The real, philosophically rigorous, metaphysically precise version. And then we're going to hold it up against the best of modern science and see how well it fits. Spoiler: it fits uncomfortably well. Let's start by burying a misconception. Most people translate Maya as illusion, and then picture a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat, implying the world is fake, a trick, something to be dismissed. That's not what the Vedic philosophers meant, not even close. The word Maya comes from the Sanskrit root ma, meaning to measure or to create. It's closer in meaning to that which is measured out. The world as a constructed, bounded, perceivable reality. The illusion isn't that the table in front of you doesn't exist. The illusion is that the table is fundamentally real, that it's the base layer of existence, rather than an appearance projected from something deeper. This is the core of Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual school of Hindu philosophy, most famously articulated by Adi Shankaracharya in the 8th century. Advaita means not two. The central claim: there is only one thing that is truly, fundamentally real. That thing is Brahman, pure, undifferentiated consciousness, infinite, formless, the ground of all being. Everything else, every rock, every galaxy, every thought you've ever had, every person you love, is Brahman, experiencing itself through Maya. The multiplicity you perceive is real as experience, but it's not the final layer. Think of it this way: when you dream, the dream feels completely real. You feel pain, fear, joy. The dream objects have weight and texture within the dream. But when you wake, you realize all of that, the entire world, was a projection of your own consciousness. Advaita Vedanta says walking life is structurally identical to that dream. The difference is only the scale of the dreamer. Brahman is the dreamer. Maya is the dream. You and I are characters in it, and also somehow the dreamer itself. There's a concept in Advaita called Avidya, ignorance, not stupidity, existential misidentification. The mistake of believing you are the individual character, the ego, the body, the name, when your actual nature is Brahman itself. Maya is the mechanism. Avidya is the result. You're not trapped in a simulation because someone put you there. You're trapped because you forgot you built it. Now here's where I want you to sit with something before we move on. If you know anything about simulation theory, a small alarm just went off in your head. Good, hold on to that. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom published what's now called the simulation argument. The core logic: if any civilization ever develops the computational power to run detailed simulations of conscious minds, and if they run many such simulations, then statistically, simulated minds vastly outnumber real ones. Therefore, we are almost certainly in a simulation. It's a probability argument. It's agnostic about consciousness, and it went viral because it reframed a haunting question. Is any of this real? In the language of computer science and statistics. What Bostrom didn't know, or at least didn't cite, is that the structural logic of his argument is nearly identical to something Shankaracharya wrote 12 centuries earlier. An infinite consciousness, Brahman, containing infinite projected realities, Maya, with individual minds mistaking the projection for the base layer. The math is different. The metaphysics is the same. But let's go deeper than philosophical structure, because the physics is where it gets genuinely strange. Parallel 1. The quantum observer effect. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have definite positions until they're observed. The famous double-slit experiment shows that an electron fired at a screen behaves as a wave, spreading through both slits simultaneously, unless a detector is placed to observe which slit it goes through. The moment you observe it, it collapses into a definite particle. Reality, at the quantum level, is probabilistic until measured. It doesn't commit to a state until a conscious observer interacts with it. Now read this from the Mandukya Upanishad. The world arises in consciousness, and to consciousness it returns. Written roughly 2,500 years ago. No particle accelerators, no double-slit apparatus. The Vedantic framework doesn't just accommodate the observer effect, it predicts it. If consciousness is the ground layer, Brahman, and the physical world is Maya, projected from that layer, then of course reality would only resolve upon observation. The simulation doesn't render what isn't being looked at. Anyone who's played an open-world video game on aging hardware knows this is just good resource management. If that's got you uncomfortable in the best possible way, I want to know, what breaks your brain more? Quantum mechanics or Vedanta? Drop it in the comments, I genuinely read them. In the 1990s, physicists Leonard Susskind and Gerard Hooft proposed something that still sounds like science fiction. The entire three-dimensional universe might be encoded on a two-dimensional surface, like a hologram. The holographic principle, which emerged from work on black hole thermodynamics, suggests that all the information needed to describe a volume of space is contained on its boundary. The depth is, in a sense, a projection. You're not a three-dimensional being. You're a two-dimensional information pattern that experiences three dimensions. The volume is rendered, the surface is real. In Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is the surface, the infinite, dimensionless ground of pure awareness. Maya is the projection, the rendered depth, the experienced world. Every object, every dimension of experience is information appearing within consciousness rather than existing independently of it. The holographic principle doesn't prove Vedanta. Let's be precise about that. But the conceptual architecture is striking. A substrate layer that contains all information and a projected experiential layer that feels primary but isn't. Physicists arrived at this through thermodynamics and string theory. Vedantic philosophers arrived at it through direct meditative inquiry. Different methods, same strange destination. Here's the move that separates Vedanta from most Western simulation theory discourse, and it's important. Bostrom's simulation argument is fundamentally materialist. It assumes consciousness is a computational output, something that happens when information processing reaches sufficient complexity. The simulation is made of code. The code runs on hardware. Consciousness is a side effect. Vedanta inverts this completely. Consciousness isn't produced by the simulation. Consciousness is the simulation's substrate. Brahman, pure awareness, doesn't emerge from matter. Matter emerges from Brahman. Maya isn't code running on a server somewhere. It's the appearance of multiplicity within an already existing, infinite awareness. This has a radical implication. In the materialist simulation model, you are a character who happens to be conscious. In Vedanta, you are consciousness who happens to be playing a character. The difference is not semantic. It changes everything about what liberation means, what the Vedic tradition calls moksha. Moksha isn't escaping the simulation. It's not logging out. It's realizing you were never just the character. You are Brahman, the infinite dreamer who temporarily forgot itself in the act of dreaming. The goal isn't to break free of Maya through force. The goal is to see through it clearly enough that its grip dissolves. You don't need to escape the dream. You need to wake up inside it. Some of you just recognize something in that framing. Maybe from lucid dreaming, maybe from a meditation practice, maybe from something you've never quite been able to put into words. That recognition is what this channel is built for. There's a Sanskrit term worth knowing here. Turiya, the fourth state of consciousness, beyond waking dreaming and deep sleep. It's not a state you enter. It's the unchanging awareness that witnesses all three states. The background, the screen that movie plays on. Contemporary neuroscience is beginning to grapple with something it calls the hard problem of consciousness. The fact that no materialist theory can explain why there is subjective experience at all. Why does information processing feel like something? Why is there an inside view? Vedanta says, because awareness is primary. You can't explain consciousness from matter because consciousness isn't made of matter. It's the other way around. And any framework, scientific or philosophical, that tries to derive awareness from non-aware processes will eventually hit a wall. That wall has a Sanskrit name. It's about 2,500 years old. So where does this leave us? Maya isn't a primitive attempt to explain away reality. It's one of the most sophisticated epistemological frameworks ever developed. A precise account of how an infinite, unified consciousness produces the experience of a finite, fragmented world. And it maps onto the best of modern physics. Not because the ancients were guessing, but because they were asking the same question physicists are asking now. What is the base layer of reality? And why does it behave the way it does? The simulation hypothesis is a modern rediscovery of a very old idea, and it's still incomplete because it hasn't solved the hard problem of consciousness, and it still treats awareness as a product rather than a source. Vedanta solved that problem first. The method was just different. Not a particle collider, but deep, rigorous, first-person inquiry into the nature of awareness itself. Here's the question I want to leave you with, and this is one I want you to sit with before the next video, not just scroll past. If consciousness is the base layer, if you are in some deep sense not a product of the universe, but the awareness in which the universe appears, then what does that mean for how you're living? What changes? Because here's what the Vedantic tradition insists, and what no simulation theory paper has yet grappled with. Knowing this isn't just philosophically interesting. It's supposed to change something fundamentally. Next time we're going to look at the Leela, the concept that this cosmic simulation isn't a trap or an accident. It's a game, a divine play. And what happens when you realize you're both the player and the game? If this video rewired something for you, share it with exactly one person who needs it. Not for the algorithm, just because some ideas are too good to sit with alone.